So I'm Barry Pomfret, ex-racing driver and national championship winner in Formula Ford quite a few years ago. I've been instructing now since 1985. I'm currently an ARDS grade instructor, which means that I'm allowed to coach people who wish to become racing drivers. I spend most of my time either coaching drivers or working on supercar experience days. This is my good friend and fellow instructor, Laura.
Thank you. Yeah, so my name's Laura Jones. So I also, as Barry's just said, do instructing on experience days, so with supercars, for example. I'm also a race mechanic, so I'm lucky enough to travel sort of around Europe working on single seaters, especially with the new W series that's just come out. So that is a new venture for me this year, as well as Global Rallycross, which is going to be a new thing for me this year also. Got into cars and motorsport through my father, who used to do road rallying, so it's always been in the family, just sort of building my own cars and working from there. Then decided to get into motorsport, started off with the sort of promotion side of things, doing social media and grid girling, and then sort of moved it over to the more mechanical side of things.
So Motek, today we've been testing two of the Motek compounds, the 600 and the 800. 600 is your road-based pad. However, if you fit a 600, you will find that it's perfectly adequate for the occasional track day. You're not going to have any issues at all with the pad overheating or any fading at all. The 800 pad is probably more designed for those regular track day people. Certainly if you're a regular Nürburgring track addict, you'd want to fit the 800. However, I have no qualms in advising people to fit the 800 and still using their car on the road. We found today that with the cold stop, 800 worked very well. It was a very good pad with lots of gripping power, but as we said previously, mainly a road pad 600, mainly a track pad 800. A few days previously, I fitted a set of Motek 800 brake pads to my GTR. In the rear of the car, we had the 600 pads fitted. Today, Laura and myself have been testing two cars, my GTR and Sam's GTR, which is fitted with the 600s in the front, on a track. During that time, we've looked at various different activities within the track, and we started off with the brakes very cold, so we tried some emergency stops from cold, and we've also done some testing where we spent several laps pounding around the circuit trying to see if we could fade the brake pads at all. What did you think about the cold stop initially, Laura?
I mean, personally, I thought they were absolutely brilliant. Not really, I was obviously expecting a good result from them, but the result that we got was extremely surprising.
Yeah, race pads or race temperature pads tend to have the, shall we say, I think it's probably true to say that they are often, people think they've not got very good cold braking properties, that the pads really need to be up to a high temperature. But what really surprised me was that we were stopping from 100 down to 0 with a disc that was I think 20 degrees centigrade, and there was an amazing stopping power. It was almost like the car was standing on its nose, and that appeared to be similar both with the 800 pad and the 600 pad. We then, later in the day, decided to go out and do some further very hard braking, where we were going round the circuit for a long period of time, hitting the brakes from approximately 80-90 miles an hour down to about 20 miles an hour. And this went on for several minutes, several times hard braking during a lap.
That's correct, yeah. I mean, they were absolutely brilliant. I mean, we're coming, as you've just said, down to the end of the straights, putting the brakes completely on, and the cars are just performing exactly as they should be. No fade whatsoever from what I found in both of the cars, really. I mean, yourself, obviously you drove both.
Yeah, I drove both cars, so the 800 and the 600. What was quite interesting was the temperatures we were getting to. After about probably 10 laps or so, we brought the red GTR into the pits. We then put a brake temperature probe onto the discs and the temperature was well over 400 degrees centigrade. So that was much more than you would get on a normal road situation, and probably at the sort of temperature you're likely to get on a track day. But the brakes were given considerable amount of grief during that time that they were out there, but performed almost faultlessly. We had no issues with them at all. There was no pad deposits on the discs afterwards, which often, if you get that happen, you get quite bad vibrations from the pads.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely no juddering whatsoever. I mean, personally, in the GTR that I was in, the performance was exactly the same the whole way around. I mean, as Barry's just said, we did quite a few laps coming down to the end of each straight, and we really were getting our foot down on them brakes, and absolutely no fade whatsoever I found in my car.
One of the other big positives of the Motek pads is that there was no brake squeal. A lot of the competitors that produce pads of this type for GTRs, they're well known for squealing properties. I've had the pads in now for a week and have used it just normal daily commuting. Pads are perfectly quiet, no squeal at all. The only thing that I did when I assembled the pads into the calipers was to put a small amount of copper slip between the piston of the caliper and the rear back of the pad disc.